Okay. Good evening, one and all. Once again, welcome to Wellbeing Centre Mental Health webinar, and we are conducting this for the celebration of World Mental Health Day. Today we have eminent speakers. Very happy to welcome them because the moment I asked, they immediately accepted to give their presentation. The objective is to reach out to mainly the students. It's a luxury for us, and conduct such kind of webinars and lectures from eminent people. Thank you very much, Dr. Karunandi, sir, Dr. Andreas, Dr. Volicia Volkova, and practitioner from Georgia. She got up very early, Ashley Lingerfeld, and Hannah Lempi from Finland. Finland, everybody knows that it is in the world the happiest country. And this today's program is thematically we have taken happiness. So please sit back and enjoy, and you will learn a lot. And there will be some step if we take. Some essence we take from the speech, and we will be able to move towards the happiness in our life. Thank you very much. Nafia, please introduce.
Hello, am I audible? Hello.
Nafia, we can't hear you.
Hello, am I audible, sir? Sir?
You're audible.
Thank you. There is a famous quote by Buddha which goes like, "You, yourself, as much as anybody in the entire universe, deserve your love and affection," with those inspiring words. Good evening to one and all present here, and a very good morning, America. It's my pleasure inviting everyone for this World Mental Health Lectures. On this occasion, it is our immense pleasure to invite Dr. S. Karunandi, Professor Emeritus, Department of Psychology, University of Madras. Dr. S. Karunandi obtained his master's degree and doctoral degree in psychology from the University of Madras in the year 1983 to 1988. He also holds a postgraduate diploma in personal management from MPC, Chennai. He had the unique opportunity to do his postdoctoral research at Virginia Institute of Technology, Virginia, USA. His teaching experience of 38 years of teaching experience, both at MSc and MPhil level, and 38 years of research experience, and his area of interest includes social psychology, school psychology, community psychology, organizational development, and management of change. And he has guided 18 PhD research scholars. And he is a current professor in Emeritus, Department of Psychology, University of Madras. And he was also awarded with prestigious awards like Bharat Siksha Ratan Award by Achievers Association for Health and Educational Growth. The Best Professor in Psychology Studies awarded by Devang Mehta National Educational Award, the Best Teacher Award given by the Lions Club, and many prestigious awards to his credits. To give the keynote address of Essentials of Teaching Happiness in Childhood, a critical view on parenting, I honorably welcome Dr. Karunandi sir.
Sir?
Yeah, I'm ready.
Yeah.
So, good morning and good evening to everybody, because we live in a global village. Some of them they got up, some of them want to go to bed, some of them they got early morning. So that's why I'm saying good morning and good evening. First of all, I would like to congratulate Dr. Krishnan for having thought about a wonderful topic on the occasion of celebrating World Mental Health Day in an unequal world. That is a topic given this year by WHO. But I personally feel this topic, that whatever assigned to all the experts who are going to speak, followed by me, that it is a wonderful in the sense that prevention is better than cure. So before meeting the challenges and crisis, he thought that unless otherwise you prepare and make them to meet the challenges, demands of the children, I think they cannot be prevented by either emotional problem or behavior problem or any mental health issues. I think for that, I got to congratulate Mental Wellbeing Centre, Institute for Counseling Psychotherapy, and especially Krishnan, who has thought about it. The topic assigned to me is Essentials of Teaching Happiness in Early Childhood. So, early childhood means probably you know only the parent become the vital force. That's only primary force. But in India, having of course, we are moving towards nuclear family, but still we have joint family system. For people who are Western countries, I would like to tell that. So, whatever the parents are trying to help and rear the child, at the same time, the grandparents also supported. They also helped. They also molded the grandchildren. Not only that, they imparted their values, their virtues, and they used to teach wonderful slogans like, you should not be selfish, you should be helpful to others. In Avayar, in Tamil, Aram Seiya Virumbu. Aram means charity, help. That's the foremost one she has taught. This is being taught in early childhood, especially first standard, second standard, third standard. But now at the current juncture, this is being left out. I do not know why it is being left out, but I am fortunate. I have learned, I have understood, I have practiced. Till today, I feel very happy. I am extremely happy that giving to somebody, not receiving. But when we say some words, I feel happy. There's no doubt. Now, Nazima is talked about me, my achievements and all those things. I feel happy. But personally, if you measure the happiness by giving only, you'll get extraordinary happiness, not by receiving. But such kind of virtue is being taught only in Indian culture. I want to really tell everybody to listen, especially younger generation. What happened to younger generation? Why they are not very happy, even though they got everything? Those days, 2-3 children were there in the family. At this juncture, only one child. So what happened? One child, or they become achiever, or they become a productive citizen, are they disciplined child? Everywhere, you know that single child means many problems being reported. Why it is reported? It is because he doesn't have much people to socialize with other children. Here in city, everybody got an apartment. Nobody knows who is living next apartment. But that is not our culture. Our culture only to interact with people, okay, make other people happy, bring other children to home, make them give something to eat and share and care. That is a principle in which we have been operated. We have been told, we have practiced. Now it is not there. It is missing. So this comes the responsibility of a family. In the absence of having one more child, a single child, you do not have opportunity, and you wanted to have you wanted to give a good education, good quality of life, your own child. But what is that you have to do then? You should provide a better, wonderful opportunity to grow as a good individual. There only the essence of teaching happiness in early childhood comes. How the parent is going to, because it's a parent responsibility. Parent has to do that. What they have to do, I want to tell everybody, in ultimate aim of life is being happy. You want to be happy. Everybody want to be happy. If possible, make other people be happy. Correct? What else? What else you are going to achieve? Whether you got a money, whether you got a car, whether you got a bungalow, okay, or whatever it may be, ultimately everything, finally you are going to experience happiness. But for happiness, those things are not needed. As a psychologist, I am very, very clear. Research evidences reveals what are the benefits of happiness. Not only be feeling good, happiness leads to increased success in early major life domains. Also better marriages, okay, strong relationship, better physical, mental health and longevity, increases creativity, cognitive abilities and resilience. So finally, if you really see, even an organization with happy employees are more productive, more happy, and they give more profitability than any other organization. So having understood the importance of happiness, why it has not been nurtured in early childhood among the children? We are given only expectations. We are given only imposition. We are given only demands. But we are not shown a way how to nurture happiness. So how to do that? As a psychologist, we should also provide answer for that. Am I right? So here, I think happiness can be nurtured. Personally, I feel, I experience that you have to allow the child to play. That's the first and foremost activity. You have to permit the child play. Through play only, he can explore, he can interact, he can make friends and understand each other. He can accommodate others and adjust with others. But which is not happening either in school or at home. What is a play now? It's happening. Give a phone, the child immediately start playing games. In a games, only violence, competitiveness, okay, jealousy has been created, or fear of failure has been increased. So parent is the culprit of preventing happiness to the child. Otherwise, leaving alone, giving complete freedom to the child, I know that they can explore the happiness. They can share, they can care each other. Is it true or not? Please think over it. As an expert in the field of psychology or a common man, play provide wonderful opportunity. That's the first one. And second, you should also allow a child whatever she likes to do. But here in India, parents trying to impose whatever they like. Suppose in case I could not become a doctor or engineer, I am trying to impose my aspiration, ambition, imposing upon the child, which he doesn't like. That is not his aptitude. That is not his willingness to pursue that career. But we are forcing them. And how do you expect the child to be happy? So rebelliousness, angry, aggression, that is the outcome of the child rearing practices. So parents required to be taught, especially psychologists, how you should permit the child explore their interest and their aptitude they possess, because there's a natural talent. Natural talent is not being nurtured, is not trained, not molded. We are only forcing, imposing on them. So that is my second point. So parents should take care of that. If you provide what they like, they do best. I tell you, do you think that in 130 crores of in Indian population, we cannot get Nobel Prize? It's not possible. It is not our ability. We do not have the ability to do that. It is because we never allowed what we would like to do. It is only given permission that what they like to do. That is why we could not get into that. That is my botheration. That is my worry. That is my concern. So that's the second thing they have to do. Third, they should be able to inculcate certain virtues in early childhood, helping others, okay, establishing friendship, very, very important. Now, the children not being allowed to have a friendship because thinking that they will make some problem, okay, as a group, but that is not correct. Socialization tactics has to come only early childhood so that the child have a better behavioral adjustment, because in those days we got 2-3 children, we used to fight with each other. That's called, children rivalry. That children rivalry definitely increases the mental health, because tolerance will come, adjustment will come, accommodation will come. Now it is single child is not there. So in the absence of that, the parents has to provide this opportunity to mingle with every children so that they also acquire, assimilate and understand their needs, and also they can reciprocally, they have a relationship. So parents, I say that cultivating happiness not only benefits oneself, that is for parents, but also family, community and society at large, it helps. I do not know why the parents are not able to understand that. Every time they think about only the child wanted to be number one, has to get a number one rank. And then who will get second, third rank? It's very surprised. It looks so irrational, illogical. See, the child can perform only what he is capable of. More than that, if you do that, like elasticity, that is why mental illness come more pressure, more tuition, more coaching. What for? I never got any coaching. Even I do not have a proper teaching also, I will say that I never got it. So whoever capable, okay, everybody can, God has given wonderful talent for each and every human being. Swami Vivekananda says, each soul is potentially divine, but that has to manifest. But we never allowed, especially in our country, to manifest that. So I have so much concern, and also the responsibility of the parents and family play a foremost role, make them the child happy in early childhood, which means allow them to play, okay, mingle with other children, very essential. And third, you have to impart the values. That values nothing but common values, helping others, pro-social behavior. Then I think more than that, the resilience and optimism, hope, empathy, compassion has to be created among the children. That only will take a society a longer run. Otherwise, we cannot live in the society which we are living in the present day. Because you know that pollution, how the pollution has come, how climate change has occurred. All it is because of parents only. Parents never taught how the tree is very important, how it gives oxygen, and we are giving carbon dioxide. Never taught. Those days they taught. And our teachers used to tell you to plant a tree. Okay, so all these things are missing. Every parent wanted their child only to get a rank, and they wanted to reach the top, and nobody reached the top. You know that what happened ultimately. Only they got unhappiness, frustration, intolerance, totally, finally, they land into some mental depression or mental illness. So in order to prevent that, I think teaching happiness in early childhood should be the primary motto of school and the parents. Okay, so finally I would like to say cultivation of positive emotion is a strategy that can contribute directly to personal happiness. Okay, that leads to, finally I would say that leads to altruistic, yes, altruistic behavior. But that altruistic behavior only help in the long run to really safeguard our society and community at large. I think I have taken more time because 15 minutes only it's given time. I could not cover everything, but what I had in my mind, spontaneously I spoke. I never prepared. These are all my feelings. These are all my ideas. These are all which I have experienced during early childhood. This is missing in the present society. So parenting is become a very critical issue at this present juncture. I think that student and teacher has to take care in order to promote the happiness and wellness and also prevent the mental illness during this juncture. So I would like to thank Dr. Krishnan for providing this wonderful opportunity and be with everybody. And I could able to see a lot of people from abroad. I think probably if opportunity permits, we can keep in touch with them so that even continuously we can, such kind of program can be organized and we can promote, because whatever we got, we should give back to the society and globally. Now we don't think locally, everything is global only. So with these few words, I like to thank you for, I think, patience listening. It's a missing link what I see. I could not see everybody directly so that I could get inspired from you and also I can give inspiration. But what kind of inspiration I made, only Krishnan probably based on feedback you can say that. So thank you, Krishnan. Thank you, participant, for your patient listening. Thank you.
Thank you very much, sir. It has been very inspiring and insightful. And it is very happy to hear from you that you call me doctor. I'm not. And
you're not a doctor. One day you'll become a doctor. Don't worry.
So thank you. With your blessings and your kindness and your guidance, soon that I initiate to that towards that. Thank you very much, sir. Thank you very much for your time.
Namaste.
Thank
Namaste.
you very much once again.
Thank you, sir, for your inspiring words. Now, we would like to invite Dr. Andreas Kraft, who's currently working at the Institute for Systemic Management and Public Governance, University of St. Gallen, Switzerland. Dr. Andreas does research in applied psychology, positive psychology, and health psychology. He trains corporates in their skills and expertises like motivational psychology, interpersonal relationships, and psychological assessment. He is here to give his address on hope, a better life ahead.
Thank you very much for your introduction, and thank you for the invitation. It's really a pleasure to be here, and I hope you can hear me very well. I'm sitting here on my, thank you. I'm sitting here on my terrace in Switzerland, enjoying the nice weather on a Sunday afternoon. Yeah, I really think back to the days I've been in Tamil Nadu, and I visited Krishnan, and I visited people in both. I was in Anugraha College at that time with Father Lawrence, and you know that those who know me, I don't know if there are some people here that I met that time 2 years ago, 3 years ago, that I really enjoyed my stay in India twice very, very much, teaching also in Hyderabad and being in Kerala and also in Chennai and in Dindigul. So I really felt in love with you all guys. It's really amazing. You are wonderful people. Thank you very much for inviting me to be here. And I would like to talk about hope during these pandemic times. And I prepared a presentation that I would like to share with you. because we have done an investigation, a research on how people could cope with, are you seeing my screen now? Is that fine? Okay, thank you very much. Excellent. Well,
friends, please, everybody keep your mic on mute mode.
No.
Very often we are getting disturbed. Thank you.
Yeah, okay. This is our college, our university in the Swiss mountains, very nice place. I would like to start with the situation that we are facing for the last 2 years almost, and then talk a little bit about the Hope Barometer. This is the survey that we yearly perform in 14 different countries, also in India, and I will share with you the newest results of our Hope Barometer survey. I will go into details of how stress has been perceived by population during these COVID times, but I will go much more into detail about what are the coping strategies that people used during the time, and also what were the most successful coping strategies that were performed or used by the people, especially also in India. I will share with you the importance of hope, of perceived hope among all of us, how important it is to have a positive look into the future, and not staying stuck in the current situation that could be very burdening and difficult for most of us. But what research has shown, and this is something that we have investigated as well, is that crisis situations do not only have negative consequences, but they could also, and they do have also, positive consequences if we know how to handle them and how to cope with them. And this is what we are used to call stress-related or post-traumatic growth. And this has been the case during these last 18 months or 2 years that we have experienced. So one of my core messages is that, I mean, crisis used to happen in our lives, not only now with this pandemic situation, but the question is not if we should, if we like crisis or not. The question is how we handle those crises and what we can do in order to not only be a victim of the crisis, but also to cope them positively and to make something positive about them. Because if we're not able to do that, we will succumb and we will, be the victims of that. And my conclusions will be then at the end, I hope, very, very clear to all of us. I mean, pandemic crisis, I don't have to say too much about it, but I think that the very special thing is that it has touched every part of our life. It's about our health, about our family, about everything that we are used to in society, in the economy. So everything, almost everything has been, touched by this very special situation that we have been facing during the last months. And it has been a very strong burden in most of our lives. Let me talk shortly about the Hope Barometer. This is a survey that we have been performing for the last 12 years in many, many countries of the world. I will present to you the results, selected results of our survey in November 2020, where we were able to interview or to survey more than 10,000 people. You can see here how mixed the population was that answered our questionnaire. 1/3 men, 2/3 women. We had also 273 people in India that answered our survey, and we have people from all different ages and family status and also activities. So what I want to say with that is that we are not only serving students, but yeah, the average population or the very heterogeneous population in, I will afterwards show you how many countries or which countries we have been working with this survey. Let's start with one of the first topics that we have investigated, and that is that of perceived stress. Ecologically seen, we have to differentiate between two different elements of a crisis or of a stressful situation. On the one hand, we have the concrete events that happen around us and the objective facts about lockdowns, about diseases, and about the situation that we are facing in our families and in our work. But these kind of concrete events are perceived differently by different people. It means that perceived stress that we perceive is dependent on how unpredictable, how uncontrollable, and how overloading we experience these concrete events and objective facts. So that means that, for example, somebody could have the same situation in her family or in his family or in her or his work, but because of maybe different predispositions from a personality point of view or social networking that the person has or other aspects, could experience this situation differently, more or less predictable, more or less controllable. That means that the higher the unpredictability, the higher the uncontrollability of the situation that we are facing, and the higher the sense of overload that we are perceiving, higher is the uncertainty. It's the feeling of threat, and at the end, the feeling of the stressful situation that we are facing. Let me show you in 14 different countries that we have investigated these different levels of stress, and this has been, the data has been collected in November 2020, and that means more or less 1 year after the breakout of the crisis, of the COVID-19 crisis. And we can see that they are countries with higher levels of stress, such as, for example, Spain, Colombia, and as well India. Maybe because of the difficulties of coping with sanitary infrastructure, maybe because difficulties in political, economical, and maybe societal responses to the crisis, whatever. But we can see that these countries has been, people or population in these countries have been, the consequences have been stronger for these countries than in other countries, such as, for example, Australia, Austria, Nigeria, and also Switzerland, the country in which I'm living. So, however, we can, I mean, mean values are always very difficult to interpret. We have to look at what are the frequencies, because you can have people with high levels of stress and people with low level of stress. But let's summarize with this chart that India is among one of the countries that experience stress stronger than in other countries. Let's show you, for example, a couple of items that are significant for these results. For example, the question, how often have you felt nervous and stressed? And when looking at the general population of all these countries that we have investigated, 50% or more than 50%, that this has been often the time. On the other hand, when asking how often have you felt difficulties were piling up so high that you could not overcome them, almost 49% of the general population says that that is not the case, because you or the people could have resources in order to cope with this situation. However, you have 20 or more % of the population that really has difficulties with the possibility to overcome these kind of difficult situations. The third one is, for example, how often have you felt confident about the ability to handle your personal problems? And you can see that 57% of the population had really the possibility to be confident and the ability to handle with the problems. That is a good news, because we are not only facing stress, but we also have the opportunity and the possibility to cope with that. However, if we look at India, we see that this question regarding how often have you felt difficulties were peeling up so high that you could not overcome them, you have less people saying that this was not the case. So we have more people saying that this was a more difficult situation. However, 52% had also the opportunity or the confidence and the ability to handle these problems. When looking at the general distribution of how many people were able to have lower stress and higher stress, we can see that it's almost a perfect normal distribution in all countries, taking the participants of all countries into account, so that we can see that most people were able to handle the crisis. But you also have, of course, people who have been hit very strongly by the crisis with high levels of stress, and others that were able to cope with it very, very well. Looking at the Indian results, it is much more marked that we have two groups of people. On the one hand, people that were pretty good able to handle their situation with lower levels of stress, but on the other hand, another much more affected group with higher level of stress, as we can see here in this graph. So my question, or the question now, is what have these people here that experience lower level of stress done differently than perhaps this group of people that had experienced this situation much difficult than the others? For this, let's come to the coping strategies that were used and applied by the population. Basically, we know that there are three different sources of coping strategies, or three different groups of coping strategies. One of them are the problem-focused coping strategies. The second one is the emotion-focused strategies. And the third one are the so-called dysfunctional strategies. Looking at the problem-focused strategies, we could actively cope with the situation, do something about it. We could employ our self-direction. We can dedicate more on things that are important to us. For example, we could plan, and we can get instrumental social support. This is a very important topic that I would like to stress or to underline afterwards. Looking at the emotion-focused strategies, one of the main topics is just to accept, just to be aware of the situation, to accept the situation, not to deny it, as is the other possibility in a dysfunctional way, to accept the situation and to do something about it. But we will see afterward that the positive reframing of the situation, the positive perception of what could be done and what can I gain about, or what can I profit about the situation, and what are possible new perspectives that I could put on the situation. This is a very important coping strategy as well, as well as the emotional support. For example, people being besides me and giving me their positive feelings, and just being there to just give me a positive idea or a positive feeling about myself and the situation. Of course, humor and religion are also positive emotion-focused strategies. We will look at which strategies have been used more and which less, and what are the impact of these strategies on hope and stress. As we see, we have also these dysfunctional strategies such as venting, disengagement, self-blame, and substance abuse. Look at the general results of the general population in all these countries. We can see that the most important coping strategies were that of acceptance and positive reframing, of course, as well as the so-called problem-solving strategies. And fortunately, the negative or dysfunctional strategies has been used less by the population. When looking at the Indian population, what comes to my mind is that you have used exactly the same, the acceptance and positive reframing, but and compare it with the other slide, what has been used more is emotional support. And this emotional support is very important in order to help each other and to support each other, as the professor said before in the introductory talk, is how important it is to have a network of people supporting you, not only instrumentally, not only helping you to care for the babies or for the children and giving you money, but just being there and giving you a positive, reassurance or a positive feeling that you need. Of course, you have engaged, Indian population has engaged very much in active coping strategy, but what has been also very positive is the instrumental support of people helping each other in that situation. And religion has to be acknowledged as well, is a very important coping resource for the population in India. Let's come to perceived hope. And we can see how important hope has been for the population in general. More than, or about 60%, more than 50% of the population said that in the life of theirs, hope outweighs the anxiety, that even in difficult times, they are able to remain hopeful, and that hope improves the quality of their lives, looking positively into the future, and that they are really hopeful with regard to their lives. This has been the case in more than 50, almost 60% of the population. And now look at, somebody is talking in the background. Maybe you can unmute your microphone. Thank you very much. We can see the correlations now of these coping strategies with regard to hope and...
Meenakshi, please mute.
Could you
please mute.
Mute your microphone. Thank you very much. So maybe you can mute it for... I'm the host, so I would be able to mute the wait a minute. So I have to...
If you want, you can remove also.
I'm not, yeah, I have to continue. I don't know how to mute them all. Okay, let me continue. So what we see is that the positive reframing is good in order to lower the stress. So you have, wait a minute, I have to look at where I can help somebody to mute. Yeah, well, let me continue because I'm not able to mute the microphone of the person. So let me, can you hear me? Yes, I hope you can. You can hear me now.
Yeah, we can hear you.
Yeah, thank you very much. Okay, what I'm trying to say now is that positive reframing and acceptance has a positive impact in terms of less stress and especially more hope, as well as acceptance has and active coping. What is important is to see that for example, the emotional instrumental support. On the one hand, people that experience more stress were able or should, were very important to get the emotional and instrumental support. So they acknowledge this instrumental and emotional support the most. And this helped them to remain hopeful much more than if you wouldn't be able to get this emotional and instrumental support. So look at the results of the Hope Barometer in terms of the sources of hope. And I think this is very important, what we have seen before and heard before, the support of family and friends in the crisis, and also the pleasant experiences in nature were the two most, the strongest resources to remain hopeful. Ashley will talk about the importance of nature afterwards, and I think for her it's very nice to see that pleasant experiences in the free nature is the second largest source of hope. Didn't want to do this. What we can see is that in the general population, the experience of God's support was very little. In the case of India, it was 1.8. So the spiritual aspects were very important in India as well. And also the doing good for a meaningful cause. That is the third most important resource and source of hope. That is what Professor said in the initial talk, how important it is that to do something good for other people. This is one of the most significant sources of hope. Now, let me come to the stress-related growth. What is important to see is that crisis situation could also have a positive impact, a positive consequence on our lives in terms of self-understanding, in terms of treatments of others with kindness, helpfulness, respect, and feelings and with beliefs of others. We have also the possibility to be more self-confident, to acknowledge and to recognize our personal strengths, to be more optimistic, be able to regulate our affects, and to feel that we belong to a community, to a caring community in general, and also our faith and belief in a higher power. This religiosity could be also a positive result of a stress situation or of a crisis situation. And look at this. We have general population, most of the people experience positive results, a positive impact after the crisis. But the Indian population was much more positively affected, or the impact on the Indian population was stronger, developing self-understanding, having a better treatment of others, having more consciousness of your own strengths, and especially the level of belongingness. So when looking at the crisis, not only look at the negative sides and the negative consequences, but look also at the positive consequences. And this is because the level of coping, the positive coping strategies and the level of hope was so high across the population. This is my conclusion. My conclusion is that in crisis situations, and thanks to the level of positive feelings and hope and the meaning during this situation, we have the opportunity to grow personally, developing our positive strengths, our personal strengths and potentials and self-confidence. We have the opportunity to appreciate our relationship with other people and to help other people during this situation. We have the opportunity to set new and novel priorities, to really be aware what is important in life. And it's not always material things that are important, but much more family and also helping other people. And we could also appreciate life and the quality of life much better after having this opportunity be on in such situations, and a holistic and more spiritual growth in general in our lives. So this was my presentation. Sorry for being a little bit longer, maybe on the time. I had 30 minutes time, so
yeah, I think it was perfect.
It's perfect. Thank you very much for your attention, and I wish you a very good and a very nice conference in the afternoon. Thank you very much.
Would you like to take any questions?
Yes, yes, of course. If somebody would like to ask something, please. I have to unmute Aishwarya. Maybe, let me see, I will not share anymore. And now I can...
Sir, may I ask you one question?
Please ask.
Sir,
Yeah, Francis.
Sir, I really, very, very insightful and very informative. And, you know, you have done a very profound research. But my only concern is in India, you mentioned you did it in 2020. And there is a effect of second wave that happened during the 2021, you know, that was very severe consequence, you know. And
yes, we will.
I'm not, yeah, please. Yeah, I'm not sure whether you captured those reaction. Yeah.
Yeah, we will do the next wave will be now in 3 weeks. We will start with the next wave of data collection. But the main message of mine is not only if you have been better or worse in how dealing with the pandemic situation, but what could you do? What is really something helpful that you could do during such kind of crisis? So it's just about knowing that positive reframing, that hope, that acceptance, and that caring for other people, that this is something that you can always do in every situation, no matter how difficult or how serious the situation could be. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Okay.
Sir, I have a question. Can you hear me?
Okay.
Yes, of course. Who wants to ask?
That was a good research on the Indian population. My question is that what do you think?
Nikhil, please introduce yourself and ask question.
Oh, sorry. Good afternoon, sir. I am Nikhil, and I'm a MSc student in Anugraha. I'm currently pursuing my counseling and psychotherapy. And that was a very good research on your part, and you did a wonderful job presenting it. My question is, sir, that your research shows that the Indian population shows significant difference when compared to other countries. Yes. What do you think is the role of a family in this difference? Nuclear or a joint family type?
I don't know really if the work done within the families has been less good in India than in other countries. I don't think so. I think the role of family, as we have seen in the results, is eminently, it's really extremely important, because the family is the nucleus, is the core group of people where emotional support, instrumental support, and hope has been or should be nourished. So that is very important. Of course, if you have many households with only one person, single people living alone, as the professor said before, in a city with so many apartments, and you are living alone, I think loneliness is one of the most, let's say, dangers and most of the difficulties in coping with stress and with difficult situations. So my advice is to find a social group. If you are a single person living alone, find other people with whom you could share, with whom you could cope with the situation. And the families are really extremely important and should be strengthened very much in this kind of situations.
Thank you so much.
Thank you too, and I greet you there in Anugraha, where I've been twice and had so many nice experiences couple of years ago.
Yeah,
Thank you
sure.
very
Thank you
much,
so much, sir.
Dr. Andreas. It was very insightful.
I give you back the
Host.
host rights. Wait a minute. I have to look at you. Chat host, exactly. Here you are. Now you have the host again. Thank you. Bye.
Thank you, sir, for your informative speech. Now, we would like to invite a speaker from the happiest country in the world, Ms. Hannah Lempi, the psychotherapist, Helsinki, Finland. Hannah Lempi has completed MSc, family psychotherapist, and a trainer in occupational therapist, specialized in occupational therapy with children and adolescents, certified therapy supervisor and trainer, nurture and play trainer. She has worked as an occupational therapist in Helsinki University Central Hospital, in Children Neurological Clinic and Children Psychiatric Clinic. Hannah Ma'am started her own therapy practice where she provides occupational therapy services for children and adolescents. Therapy, family therapy, nature and play intervention, therapy supervision, teaches therapy and nature and play lectures about therapy and how to utilize therapy and nature and play framework in daycare, foster care, and parenting. She graduated from Infant Parent Mental Health Certificate Program in University of Massachusetts, Boston, USA. Hannah Ma'am has a background in early education as a practical nurse in daycare and in early music education. To give her address, she is here to give her address on how to increase happiness and joy early in life. We, we welcome you, ma'am.
Oh, thank you. Nice to be here. I hope there is not too much background noise. My extended family is having dinner downstairs. So if you hear laughter, that's them. We are joining after the pandemic. This is the first time that we are together in person. Okay, so today's subject of happiness, of course, it's very dear to me in many ways, but I wanted to start by sharing a short clip from 25 years ago. Let me see, I will. So that was me and my son, and we were able to capture the first time he laughed out loud. So that is a very important video for me, and I wanted to share that. Because today what I'm talking about is happiness in general, but I'm also focusing on very early years of development and families. Okay. Okay. So, as it has been told today a few times, Finland is, I think, the 4th year on the row. We are the happiest country in the world. And if you tell that to a Finnish person, they will say that we are very modest. So it's always a surprise for us when those results come. And it is interesting that it is such a surprise for us. But Krishnan actually asked me to talk a little bit about why we might be the happiest country in the world. And one of the first things that come to my mind is trust We trust in the social system a lot. We trust our government, we trust our officials, and we trust our neighbors. For example, I live in the capital area and our door is hardly ever locked. It's the sort of trust. I live in a neighborhood where somebody would notice if a stranger would come in and say something. Plus, I have 2 dogs that also take care of barking at strangers. Nature. I was happy that the previous presenter talked about the importance of nature. In general, Finnish people have about 700 meters to the closest forest. I'm luckier. I only have maybe about 300 meters to the closest small forest and 700 meters or kilometer to bigger ones. Nature is a big part of Finnish identity. We are the land of thousands of lakes and big forests and beautiful seasons. We are also very obedient. We follow the rules, sometimes even in the amusement of ourselves. But there's a lot of, we follow the laws, but we also follow a lot of the sort of common agreements that we have. An example from the pandemic area. The mask policy hasn't been a mandate in Finland. It has been a recommendation, and most people, about maybe 90–95%, wear masks because it's recommended. We don't need a policy for that because we want to, most of us want to be obedient. And honesty. Oh, there's someone. Hang on. I have to,
Please mute.
Okay. Josephine, could you please move the? Can only. I don't know who's talking, but okay. Let me see who's talking and if I can move. I think it's, yeah. Yeah, okay. I think problem solved. So honesty. Of course, we are not honest all the time, but when a Finnish person says that they will meet you at 5 o'clock for a cup of coffee, you can be sure that they are there at 5 o'clock. If they say that let's have coffee, they will follow that. I'm laughing because I've also studied in the US where let's have coffee had some kind of other meaning than for a Finnish person. And it was a little bit difficult for me to understand, and it's not a arrangement. But so those kind of things. And of course, very important things. We have the best chocolate in the world. That's one of the big reasons why we are a happy country, in my opinion. And also Santa Claus or Father Christmas lives in Finland, not in North Pole, but in Lapland, in Korvatunturi. So those are very important factors in our happiness. So, but at the same time, there is the downside of Finnish societies. There are things that don't work. And one of the things that we have that is the other side of happiness is that there is quite a large number of depression. So about 20–25% of adults have some kind of mental issues yearly. So how can we increase happiness within families? And my work especially focuses on early years and even already before the baby is born to pregnancy. And why I wanted to talk about happiness in families is that becoming a parent is one of the most blissful, but at the same time, the most stressful lives in our lifespan in general. And the quality of the prenatal and postnatal interaction between parent and the baby is actually really important to the child's development, even on a very, very long run. There's a lot of research done for long-term research where you can look at how it affects children if their parents don't get enough support and help when they have mental difficulties during the pregnancy or the early years of the child. And actually prenatal attachment starts already about 10th week of gestation. So when you think about it, that's a long time. Almost most of the pregnancy or early on, it already starts to do its magic, and it's an important part of the development already then. And after birth, the interaction between parent and child actually predicts the child's development a lot. So a good positive interaction predicts a positive development for the child. To have a secure attachment contributes to learning, social competence, self-regulation, and resilience in stressful situations. So how about when we talk about happiness, we have to talk about joy. And I think we always have to also talk about play. And then when we talk about parenting, we need to talk about shared experience. So when you think about child's development, the everyday interactions with the close ones, it can be the parents, it can be grandparents, it can be daycare people who are taking care of the children while the parents are at work. All of those interactions are the construction material for the child's developing psyche. And not only the psyche, but it's also the construction material for the abilities and inner structure of self. So how does the child feel about themselves then and in the future? There's a colleague of mine who has this saying that we cannot see ourselves with our own eyes. So we need other people's eyes that we can look at ourselves in. And why I also want to talk about play, well, it's one of my passions, not only professionally, but also personally, is that at least in Finland, sometimes people think that work is the opposite of play, but actually it is not. And I can say, for example, for me, definitely it's not, because I get to play in my work daily, with sometimes surprises, especially the children that I work with, that they realize that this is my work, playing peekaboo and hide and seek and all of the other funny stuff that we can do together. Like I said, work is not really the opposite of play. Depression is. So as humans, we need play to be happy and joyful. And it's the sort of counterbalance. It counterbalances depression. And when we think about developing children, and if their parents have mental issues, for example, depression, they need extra help. The parents need extra help to be playful with their children, to make sure that the development of the children will be on a good path. Stuart Brown is a researcher. He has written a book called Play. And he also talks about how all mammals play. And it is important for all mammals, not only for us humans, but in higher animals, like we can think us humans as higher animals. One of the important aspects of play is that it fosters empathy, and it also teaches us how to behave in complex social groups. And for us humans, play also lies at the core of creativity and innovation. So when we talk about small children and their parents, and we talk about interaction and attachment, I usually think about how people create that kind of attachment bond and interaction. I divide it to 3 parts. First of them being touch. Touch is usually one of the first things that babies experience already actually in the belly, because there is that you can, especially at the end of the pregnancy, you can touch the babies, but they are also touched by our own bodies all the time out during the pregnancy. Hang on, there's someone who's not muted. I will check who it is. No.
May I request Dr. Abuda Devi, Francis, Sudha, please mute.
Okay, thank you. So touch is the very
Dr.
first.
Abuda Devi, Sudha, please mute.
Let's see if I can find her. There's so many people, so it takes
Dr.
a while.
Abuda Devi, please mute.
Excuse me, sir. Namaste. As a host, you can mute all the participants.
Yeah, I'm trying to, but I'm not.
Yeah, as
able to.
Wellbeing Centre, the gentleman from the site can host all the participants.
So, as I was saying, touch is the very first form of getting to know each other after the birth. And it has a vital influence, not only to the baby, but also to the parent and parent engagement to becoming an attachment figure. Touch can be very calming, and especially when it's the deep sensation focused touch, it acts as an immediate stress relief. And touch is also important for the development of the baby because it constructs the body image and has a positive effect on learning. And the second part of this is early soundscapes. Well, the babies can already hear during pregnancy, around from 6 months of gestation. And a newborn recognizes mother's voice, not only the mother's voice, but they also recognize other people who have been constantly talking when they have been still in the tummy. And hearing, especially human voices, is vital to language development. And actually, the first 6 months are very vital phase of that. And I don't know if you know the saying that there's a special word for how we talk to children. A lot of times it's called motherese, meaning that we use a higher pitch and more rhythmic and melodic voice when we talk to the babies. Nowadays, it's also called parentese, meaning that dads do it too. So it's not only the mothers who do that. An interesting thing is that babies can actually recognize affect in a voice very, very early on. And this is something that maybe we don't always realize how powerful the voice is also as not only the words, but how we talk. And then the third is face-to-face contact. Newborn is already most interested in faces. There have been these studies where they show a picture of a face, they show a form of a face, and then there is a live person. And newborns always tend to turn to the person who is there in person. And from very early on, child mirrors adults' face to understand their own experiences. So they are not only trying to understand what we are experiencing, but it's also mirroring their own experience. And when they're a little bit older, you can see that the baby there's a stranger coming into the room, the baby checks the mom or dad, is this person okay? So they use the parent as a guide how to act upon the new situation. And as I said, the quote earlier, child measures their own worthiness from other people's eyes. So Colvin Trevorton is also a researcher who talks a lot about the importance of play and the musicality of the voice, and how we have to imitate and accept imitations so that we can build a reciprocal confidence and experience. So, but what do we do when there's some background noise? Hang on, I will check if I can find who's the. Okay, now it's gone. So, as I said, there is quite a lot of depression also in this happy nation that we have, the population that we have here. And also it is quite common during pregnancy and postpartum that the parents' mood sort of dips down. About 80% of parents have some kind of mood dip, especially after the birth. That's normal. But about 20% of those actually get depressed. So we need interventions that most preferably already start from the pregnancy, but also early on, postpartum, and act as a medium, an intervention medium, increasing joy and happiness and mentalization capability in families. So nurture and play is a short-term intervention developed in Finland, and it's based on therapy and mentalization principles. And the idea is that it can be delivered in family settings and in group settings, and starting already in pregnancy. And the idea of nurture and play is one of the key ideas is to increase parents' reflective capability, mentalization, and also bring joy and happiness into the interaction between the child and the parent. Because babies cannot understand if the parent is depressed. They don't understand that it's not about them. They don't have capability to understand, and that's a different issue from them. They start to internalize that as part of themselves. So that's why it's important to have an intervention. So what do we do? This picture is actually from our Nurture and Play handbook. Already during pregnancy, we start wondering with the parents about their feelings and thoughts, but we also think about what might the baby be experiencing, feeling, and thinking already in them. There are ways that we can also help them to really focus on that. This picture is from observation video that I've done with a pregnant mom, and the dad is there. Mom is reading the book because in this it's dad's turn to interact with the tummy baby. So mom is behind the book so that dad has no how would I say? There's no extra expressions from mom, and so he can concentrate on the task completely. And then when the baby is born, then we can do the same again, that we have an activity. We do something that is fun for the whole family, And then we pause for a moment and wonder with the parents that what was their experience, what were they thinking, and what maybe is the baby thinking and feeling. And the important thing about reflective function and mentalizing is that we also understand that we cannot always, we don't know what the other person is thinking, but we can be empathetically curious about the other person and their thoughts and feelings. And with these exercises, we can try to help the families to really be curious about what's going on. So this is the same family that was in the previous picture. Now there is a toddler in there and they are wondering about some toys and what kind of experience this is now. So now I have a few videos for you. I'm just wondering, I don't know if I have some client videos I had ready, but actually I'm not going to be able to share them because this is recorded. So I have permission from the families to use them in training, but I don't have a permission to sort of spread them in the audience that I don't have any control over. But I luckily I have another video that I can show you, which is actually also, this is not a client. They were just mom and a toddler who came to my office kindly to play with me. So let me see if I can play that. Hang on. You can just see what kind of quite, it's not working. So let me see if I can. No. Would it be possible, Krishnan, to just pause the recording for a while so I could share the client videos, because I would really love you to see just a small clip. It's about a few minutes.
Okay, go ahead.
Would that be possible? So yeah, thank you so much for accommodating. Thank you. Yeah, okay, thank you. So this is a group nurture and play. These diets came to my office because of the baby's restlessness and crying a lot. And the mothers were feeling that they don't connect with the babies in a way that they would hope to, and there's not enough joy. So I wanted to show you just a clip of one of the games that we do, and I wanted to share this joy. Oh, hang on. Oops. Hurry. I'm sorry. I'm sorry, you can hear the giggle, but I okay. Okay, so sorry. I was so present. I will try to share it again. Let me see. I will share it so you can see it from the beginning. Because as you don't speak Finnish, you don't really understand what's going on.
Kyllä se on näin. Onni nauraa pelkästään odotuksesta. Joo. 1, 2, 3.
Okay, now you can put the recording on. I just wanted to share that laughter, and that was actually a very special moment for this mom, because on the previous group sessions, she had really struggled to be in sync with the child. Like they were both enjoying each other's company, but there was this mismatch of timing. And this time it just worked perfectly. And you could also see the joy in the mom's face as she was doing these things with her son and enjoying these moments. So thank you for your patience for the for my enthusiastic scrambling of sharing the video. So in the slides, you will also, I will share these with you. There's some references and resources. And I also want to thank you for listening, and I'm ready to answer any questions that you might have.
Thank you, Hannah. That was very nice presentation, and I mean, it was taking back my, when I was a young father. So it's good. The floor is on for questions.
There's a mention in the chat. Thank you, about hearing the laughter. Yes, baby's laughter is something so contagious. It's such a force of nature, and it's never fake. You can always rely that it's something that just comes from them. And we call it a belly laugh a lot of times, because that's where it comes from, deep inside. Okay. So Francis, you have a question?
So one thing I would like to note from your presentation, very well presented, having coming from, happiest country, I observe you have interwoven with closely with the nature. And I feel, nature ecosystem where we are, wherever we are, that plays a vital role, that really contributes. For example, in this Zoom environment, the noise, someone is making noise, maybe not intentionally, but they are not aware, unknowingly. And actually, that means in a country, we are not aware of the laws. We are not conscious about what we are doing, so that is disturbing others, this noise. So likewise, in a country, the ecosystem plays a very vital role that really contributes for the happiness, I think.
Yeah, thank you for the comment. I think, yeah, we're very quiet people. I'm not saying that we are not loud but what we really need our quiet time, and for me especially, for example, the nature is one of the places. Even that I live in an urban area, I'm not away from the background noise completely, but still in the forest, especially in the winter when it snows. It's really interesting. It muffles everything, so it's very quiet in the winter time if there's enough snow. But sorry, did you have more of a question? Or maybe I didn't quite.
The question actually, is it required for the government to insist on creating awareness of the rules and regulation, do's and don'ts? And yeah,
maybe, but
didn't ask also now what to do.
Maybe if I don't think so. We are sort of, I think it's sort of inbred in us about the rules and regulations. It's sort of, we are very, it's not a thing that they is really emphasized from the government and the officials. I think it comes from maybe from the upbringing. Like we teach our children to follow the rules, for example, like how to not jaywalk or how to behave. Well, it's not so much of behavioral thing, but more of a that if you promise something, you have to keep it. And if there is a rule, you have to obey it. I think it's more of an upbringing than sort of forcing from the government or officials. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you.
Oh, Andreas, I knew that you would maybe comment. I don't know if there's empirical, Andreas asked me if there's any empirical evidence that the Finnish chocolate is the best in the world. I know Switzerland is one of the countries who think that they have the best chocolate in the world. Maybe we should have like a tasting
and we don't
competition.
have Belgium, people from Belgium also. So there
Yeah,
will be
from
three.
Belgium and some people from Italy also, but I'm standing behind my opinion. But no, I don't think that. I think that it's mostly a matter of an opinion and taste. Maybe it's what you learn to love from early on. So when you've had it as a child, it's the most special thing for you. Thank you, Andreas.
We can share our chocolates with each other and then taste them.
Definitely. That would be a good idea. Oh, there's also a question about do we have any strategy to recommend for handling the postnatal depression of mothers? In Finland, all the mothers are screened in the well baby clinics already postnatal and postnatal also about the depression, and if the scores are high enough, they are recommended to get therapy. But with the nurture and play intervention, we also think that it's not enough to individually help the mother with the depression. You need an intervention where you also focus on the relationship between the child and a parent. And there's actually quite a lot of research nowadays that says the same thing, that it's not enough only to handle the parents' mental health by itself, but there's also needs simultaneously another intervention that would also focus on the relationship. Thank you. Anything else?
Thank you, Hannah. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
It's been wonderful having you here. And thanks for your time, because you have your extended family there for dinner.
Yes, they've been laughing. I don't know how much it has been coming through my microphone, but yes, they are having a good time and I'm joining them in a minute.
Thank you very much. You can put me back as a host.
Yes. Okay, hang on.
Thank you, ma'am, for your informative speech on play and the importance of touch and voice for the growth of a child.
Okay.
Now
you're host again.
Now we would like to welcome Ashley S Lingerfeld. She is a licensed professional counselor specializing in infant, early childhood, and perinatal mental health. She is the clinical director and founder of Playtime Therapy of Georgia LLC and serves on the board of directors for the Georgia Birth New Network and the support of International. She is here to give her address on A Key to Happiness. We welcome you, ma'am.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. Let me start off by saying I am sick right now. I actually have double pneumonia. And so I sound a little, I don't sound like my normal self. So I'm going to try not to cough too much. And I'm going to try to get through this kind of fast because I know we're running out of time. But thank you so much for having me. So let's see. How do I become the host?
You are already a host.
Oh, okay. Thank you. So let's see here. I gotta present my presentation. Oh, I have to share my screen first. Hold on. Well, I'll just leave it like this. Can you see this? Okay, great. I'll just leave it like this. That way I can see a little bit more. So again, thank you for this warm welcome. I'm excited to present on this topic because it seems like it's a theme that each of you so far have mentioned in your presentations. Whenever I was thinking of happiness and I thought, well, what am I going to talk about? Nature was the first thing that popped into my mind because it's just so profound and the research is there to support it. So I hope that you enjoy this. So let's see. So generally speaking, I'm going to have an introduction, then I'm going to talk about the theory behind nature as a mechanism for improving mental health and happiness, some of the research that supports it, and then some practical strategies for practicing this yourself. And so I thank you for that warm and lovely introduction. I realized that I did not share a lot about myself whenever I was asked to submit kind of some information. I wasn't sure how brief to make it. So I just wanted to share a little bit more about me. I am a licensed professional counselor in the state of Georgia in the United States. I'm an infant, early childhood, and perinatal mental health specialist, which means I focus primarily on pregnancy through the first 6 years of life. I offer individual therapy for mothers and fathers too, but primarily mothers. We focus on birth trauma, bonding, attachment, perinatal anxiety, depression, OCD, that kind of realm of things. And then I do developmental play therapy for young children. And then I'm also, I'm on the board of directors for Postpartum Support International, which is an international organization that focuses on the emotional well-being of birthing parents. And so it's a really wonderful resource, and I serve on my state board for that. But in addition to all of that, I actually have like a subspecialty in nature play therapy. I was doing this before COVID, but then whenever COVID came about, it became more popular for me because it was a safer alternative to seeing people in person in the freedom of, or the safety of the outdoor space. There was less risk, I guess, for germ exposure. But anyway, nature play therapy is something that's very near and dear to my heart. And actually, I co-authored a chapter on nature play therapy interventions for infants, and that's going to be published in March 2022. So it's coming out soon, but I'm very happy to be here and talk to you guys about this. So basically, why is this important? Well, with rising levels of stress, particularly over the past 2 years, people are searching more and more for relief from their high levels of dysregulation. Traditionally, there are barriers to mental health care, at least in my area, including the cost, accessibility, transportation, and more. Nature as a remedy for stress is an increasingly researched area of interest for psychologists, endocrinologists, and all kinds of other medical professionals. And this is because it's not only, it doesn't only benefit your emotional health. There are it's beneficial for your immune system, your autonomic nervous system. There are all kinds of physiological benefits to being in nature. So let's see. So first I want to talk about what exactly denotes a natural environment. So some research done in 2018, by Schertz, they said that there are 3 common features to a natural environment. And that is that the environment has non-straight edges, less color saturation, and less variability of hues. So like if you were to think of a picture, or if you can picture a field, right? Or a forest, we're going to have lots of non-straight edges. We're going to have some rigid and unexpected shapes. The color saturation, it can be very saturated in color, but it's going to feel very natural. It's not going to feel out of place. And then less variability of hues. That's also saying basically the color palette is all going to make sense. There's not going to be something unexpected that's going to pop out. So those are the 3 common features that denote a natural environment. So the theory that I'm going to talk about today, which I think is pretty fascinating, is called the attention restoration theory, or ART. And it claims that perceptual features of natural environments capture one's bottom-up involuntary attention while simultaneously allowing finite, top-down, directed attention resources a chance to replenish, which is a mouthful, I know, but excuse me. It suggests that mental fatigue and concentration can be improved by time spent or looking at nature. The capacity of the brain to focus on specific stimuli or tasks is limited, and it results in directed attention fatigue. And it's talking about during like habitual everyday life, sometimes we get this fatigue, right? And we need to have an outlet to replenish ourselves. And this theory says that, well, we can actually do that in nature. It says that exposure to natural environments encourages more effortless brain function, thereby allowing it to recover and replenish its directed attention capacity. So in a nutshell, attention restoration theory proposes that exposure to nature is not only enjoyable, but it can also help us improve our focus and ability to concentrate. And it was developed by Kaplan in the 80s and the 90s. At two separate times he talked about it. But he poses 4 different properties of an environment that actually allows for this restoration. The first one is extent. So the environment must provide the sensation of feeling immersed and be large enough to provide a sense of exploration. That's a really key component. The feeling of being away. So the environment must provide a respite from habitual activities and must allow a sense of mental separation from daily life. And then soft fascination. This is the most important one, but the environment must have features that effortlessly capture the person's involuntary attention. And then compatibility. The environment must be compatible with the person's goals, and the person must be willing and appreciative of the environment. So out of them all, it is thought that soft fascination plays It's thought that soft fascination plays the key role, with the other 3 properties either enhancing or sustaining the function or the fascination. And by soft fascination, what we mean is, oh, sorry, someone needs to mute themselves. I get distracted easily.
Wellbeing Centre.
Oh wait, I can mute him. There we go. Sorry, I forgot I had the magic powers to mute and unmute. But soft fascination, that's the most important one. And whenever I was thinking about how I could apply this to myself, naturally, I have a greater soft fascination with green space. For example, I would rather be in the mountains here in Georgia or in wooded trails and forests rather than the ocean. Like going to the beach, it does not, I mean, I enjoy it, but it doesn't invoke this sense of soft fascination for me. It's not necessarily inherently relaxing. For many people, it is. And that's a whole nother, I didn't talk about this in this presentation, but there's a whole nother area of research that looks at green spaces versus blue spaces and the actual ionic particles and how they interact with your body to create and invoke certain feelings. But a lot of people do experience feelings of relief and happiness when they're at the beach. But for me, my soft fascination is more so in green spaces. So that's just something to consider if you are going to be applying this theory to yourself. Make sure that the environment has features that just effortlessly capture your attention and that you find inherently beautiful. So in the research, in general, cognitive tasks that require working memory and cognitive flexibility improve most reliably after nature exposure, with tasks requiring attentional control also showing some improvement. Excuse me. On the other hand, tasks involving impulse control, visual attention, vigilance, and processing speed have not reliably shown differences in performance following exposure to natural versus urban environments. And this was in a research study by Stevenson in 2018. So the reason I put this in here is because we do know that working memory and cognitive flexibility are improved, and attentional control shows some improvements, not as marked as the working memory and cognitive flexibility. But I just wanted to, so it was even, I wanted to say, you know, we don't yet have research that suggests that tasks involving impulse control and visual attention and vigilance and processing speed to be impacted by exposure in nature. However, I do think that the more that we research this, we will find some links, because there are some studies that say that increased exposure to nature improves ADHD symptoms, but it's not enough yet to say, like, without a doubt, yes, it will improve. We do know there's a positive effect on certain things, which can certainly help other diagnoses, but we can't say that specific diagnoses are improved explicitly through nature alone. I hope that makes sense. But and then a meta-analysis of 42 articles that tested natural environments or stimuli against a suitable control. They concluded an objective measure of cognitive performance. It was reviewed. So it was performed and effect sizes across 8 cognitive domains using data from 49 individual outcome measures. And it showed that results shows that working memory, cognitive flexibility, and to a less reliable degree, attentional control are improved after exposure to natural environments with low to moderate effect sizes. And I took that directly from the abstract. Basically what it was a 42 article analysis from 2013 to 2018. So it was over a 5-year span. And that's what they pulled out of 49 individual outcome measures. So again, we can see that there's that working memory and cognitive flexibility are affected positively, but to a less reliable degree, attentional control is affected. However, it's still there. There's still a relationship, but it's just not as effective. But regardless, we're seeing that exposure to nature does increase our cognitive flexibility, which directly is directly linked to our ability to our perception of stress and our ability to handle it, our resilience. Let's see here. So this is a big question that people ask me. They say, well, how much time do you have to spend in nature? And actually, a new study published by White et al. In June of 2019, and this was in a review journal called Nature Research. Actually, it's a peer-reviewed journal. It found that in order to reap the health benefits of nature, the optimal amount of time spent in green spaces, like urban parks, the woods, or beaches, is 2 hours per week. Researchers looked at a government survey that asked 20,000 United Kingdom-based participants to track their activities for a week. Those who spent at least 2 hours in nature reported better health and well-being compared to those who didn't. The data also showed that after about 200 to 300 minutes of exposure to nature, the positive health benefits peaked, but spending more than 5 hours per week in nature had no further benefits. So anything between 2 to 5 hours a week, a minimum of 2. And if you want to do more than 5, you can, but you're not necessarily going to continue. You're not going to increase the benefit, but between 2 to 5, 2 to 5 hours per week is what you should aim for, a minimum of 2. And that might sound like a lot, but it's actually not, especially if we try to incorporate outside time during our normal routine, if we try to make it something habitual for us. And that can be as simple as taking a walk in your neighborhood, if you live in a neighborhood, or visiting a park before or after your work. And even if it's only for 20 to 30 minutes a day, it'll be okay, right? Because you'll hit that 2 hours. So, and we'll get into also, what do we do when we're out there? Because a lot of people think, well, do I just walk around? And I'll talk about that in just a minute. Let's see. So something that I think is really important to consider, and I consider this, especially in the work that I do with children, but it's also true for adults. And I encourage you all to think about this as you try to incorporate more nature time into your routine. But 3 really beautiful things occur in an outdoor environment that we don't have access to in an indoor environment, and that's sensory complexity, freedom, and space. So sensory complexity. So we have more opportunities for sensory integration and stimulation. We are typically very limited when it comes to indoor sensory experiences. These environments are typically very predictable and habitual, and being in nature allows for the exercise of all of our senses, not only our hearing, sight, touch, sound, sometimes taste if you're brave, but I wouldn't recommend that too much, but also our proprioceptive and vestibular senses, basically the way that our bodies move in space and our awareness of how our bodies are moving in proximity to other things. That's something that's exercised very freely and very naturally when you're outside. Freedom, so that's the unrestricted movement, you have unrestricted movement outside, plus you can follow your natural curiosities and preferences. which especially with children, they are not often encouraged to do. They often, for example, in a classroom setting, there's not a lot of freedom. We have a lot of restricted movement. Children are often not allowed to run or skip or jump. They usually have to stay in a single file line and walk at what we would consider a socially acceptable pace, right? And they're not encouraged to follow their natural curiosities and preferences. And we actually, even as adults, we experience these things. If we're in a building, we're not going to go skipping down the hall because there are these expectations. You need to act a certain way. And we're actually restricting ourselves a lot. And so we need to be giving our bodies opportunities to actually practice these things. So let's see. Also freedom, the unrestricted movement is a necessary part of sensory integration, which we all, I don't know if you all are familiar on the research behind sensory integration and, stress regulation and emotional regulation, but it's very important and they're tied directly. And then the last thing is space. So unrestricted exploration and the opportunity for risk-taking. The exploration part, I feel, is kind of self-explanatory. You have the ability to explore whatever you want whenever you're at a park. You can do whatever you want. But risk-taking is something that is actually very important, particularly for children. And it's not something that is allowed very often, at least in my area. I find that parents are very hesitant to allow their children opportunities for natural risk-taking. And by what I mean for natural risk-taking is, it's this idea to allow a person to explore natural risks as opportunities for sensory integration and emotional regulation. So examples might include climbing over logs, jumping small distances over little creeks or sticks or whatnot, mud puddles, scaling large rocks, which obviously we don't want the child to be in danger. We don't want to do anything dangerous, but a lot of parents, in my experience, they have a hard time discerning between what is dangerous versus what is a natural risk I should support my child in taking. Throwing things, that's actually risk-taking. What happens if the child throws the stick? What happens if they rip the clover? What happens if they rip the leaf? These are actually really necessary skills. Also risks like getting wet, and then developing a sense safe of wonder. Just allowing the child to obviously still be in close proximity, but allowing them to explore on their own and kind of, I don't know, have an opportunity to build autonomy away from the parent, right? And make decisions about what they'd like to do next. So anyway, yes, so those are some, in my opinion, 3 important outdoor considerations. Let's see here. So what are some examples of natural spaces for you to explore? We have urban gardens, botanical gardens. These are often, in my area, you have to pay to go to a botanical garden, but they are very beautiful and they are normally like little sanctuaries. It's very private. It's usually a reprieve from the bustling of a city. So like in Atlanta, we have the Atlanta Botanical Gardens, and it's subdivided into a children's garden, a sensory garden. They have themed gardens throughout the year. It's very beautiful. Community parks. This is probably the most accessible option. Obviously, I'm not sure how other countries and cities are structured around parks. But in my area in Georgia, we have a lot of access. Like in my state, my whole state is considered to be rural, except for the city of Atlanta, which is actually pretty small. But beyond that, we're mostly a rural state. So we have lots of green space, lots of mountains, lakes, rivers. And then toward the south, it gets more flat and sandy. But community parks are everywhere, and they're free. And not all of them have lots of opportunity for exploration, but most of them do. And either, they have paved paths or mulched or gravel paths, but those are really wonderful options for families, especially if there's no cost. And then, if you do live in a big city and you don't have access to parks, or maybe your access to natural spaces is very limited, indoor household plants can actually have a positive effect on your brain. And I'll talk about that in a minute, but fear not, you can still benefit from nature even inside your home. So this is something that a lot of parents and adults, parents ask me about their children, and then also adults ask me for themselves. It's like, what do I do when I go outside? So to keep it simple, you can look for things, you can listen for things, and you can touch. So looking for flowers, what is in bloom right now? And there's always something, no matter what season you are in, there's going to be some type of plant or flower that is growing during that time. That's one of also the beautiful things, is that whenever you spend time outside, you learn more about your ecosystem and you value it a little bit more. You can look for different wildlife. In our area, we have lots of squirrels and birds, hummingbirds, woodpeckers, and also landscape patterns and habitats. It's very fascinating to watch a child discover a bird's nest for the first time. Even as an adult, it's actually a very beautiful thing to think about all of the hard work that that animal put into that habitat for survival, things like that. Listening to birds, or even rivers or streams, and even the wind. Something really neat, if you have an area that has a lot of trees, when the wind blows, it actually, if you close your eyes, it actually sounds a little bit like the ocean. It's very similar to ocean waves. But there are a lot of things that can simulate that, the sense of hearing. And then lastly, touch. Think about all of the things you can touch and explore. Tree trunks, ferns, rocks, different flower petals. Some leaves are waxy, some are actually kind of hairy. Some are stiff and hard like plastic. There's so many different things that you can explore and just try to create a sense of mindfulness in the outdoor space. And so, like I said earlier, fear not, you can bring indoor or nature indoors if you don't have access to a lot of these outdoor spaces. I don't think I wrote it down, but basically research does support a relationship between houseplants and increased mood, less stress, and increased confidence. So even just keeping a succulent or a peace lily in your home, it's actually good physiologically too, because they do produce oxygen, and a lot of them are hard to kill. So it's a nice alternative. And then this is just a funny quote. It says, trees and plants always look like the people they live with somehow. And I thought, I wonder what my plant would look like. And I actually have a peace lily downstairs in my living room, and she's wilted right now. And I thought, that's actually accurate, because I'm not doing so well either. I'm a little sick. But I thought that was kind of funny. And something to ask yourself is, I wonder what my plant would look like. I want to be a reflection of you as a person. I just wanted to share this because this is not an actual disorder, but this is a movement that is kind of making waves in some circles. And it's this idea of nature deficit disorder. And I really love this idea because I believe it's true. So this is a quote by Richard Louv on October 15th of 2019. And he actually has a book called, I think it's called The Last Child in the Woods, which I highly recommend for any of you who might be interested in this topic. But he said, since 2005, the number of studies of the impact of nature experience on human development has grown from a handful to nearly 1,000. This expanding body of scientific evidence suggests that nature deficit disorder contributes to a diminished use of the senses, attention difficulties, conditions of obesity, and higher rates of emotional and physical illnesses. Research also suggests that the nature deficit weakens ecological literacy and stewardship of the natural world, which I believe is 100% true. These problems are linked more broadly to what healthcare experts call the epidemic of inactivity and to a devaluing of independent play. And I just wanted to kind of let that sink in. But despite this, because I know it sounds kind of dark, we do have the ability to turn it around. And the way that we do that is, one, as adults, we start encouraging unstructured outdoor play for our children. And then also we have to model that as adults using the things that I talked about today. And I just want to share real fast. This is actually my daughter. She's 3. She'll be 4 next month. But this was this summer. I just took these with my phone because she looks so cute. But this is an example of how simple it can be. This is just a local park. And I allow her to take off her shoes every time we go. And she finds so much joy in just standing in the water sometimes and throwing rocks. And she looks for little lizards and things like that. We look out for snakes or spiders or anything that could be dangerous, right? But I still allow her to have that natural sense of exploration. And she loves it. We go outside all the time. And then in the second picture, it might be hard to see, but she, I don't know if I can make it bigger. Let's see. She's holding a cicada. And I don't know if cicadas travel all over the world or not, but we had a huge cicada or maybe locust movement this year through Georgia. And this was a shell of one, but she thought it was really neat. And I know to some people that might gross them out. But this is an example of, it's very important for her to have a natural curiosity and to be shown these things aren't dangerous. And also it teaches children on a kind of a deeper level. She's a little too young yet to understand, but as she gets older, she will. It teaches about the theme of the circle of life. And, you know, you can learn about death really when you're in nature as well. So anyway, the last thing I want to say for some questions for you guys is, you know, how often are you in nature? Are you getting a minimum of 120 minutes per week? What spaces pique your soft fascination? Do you prefer mountains or oceans, fields or rivers, hills or flat areas? What type of access do you have to natural spaces? I really encourage you to check your local community for natural public spaces, because again, in my area at least, they're free, there's no fee. Some state parks and national parks do have a small parking fee of like $3 to $5, but most local ones are free. And then what tools and items can improve your nature experience? For children, especially, I always encourage, parents to purchase them a little pair of binoculars, maybe a small camera, a basket. My child has a little basket we keep by our front door. And if she finds something interesting, like a snail or a leaf, she'll collect it. And we set them free again at the end of the day, but just something to collect things with. And then a magnifying glass. A lot of children enjoy a magnifying glass, but those are just some ideas. But that's the end of my presentation. Sorry, I know we're out of time, but I don't know if anyone has any questions. I'm happy to answer. Oh, I'm so sorry. I see everyone's comments about making it bigger. I'm so sorry.
Thank you so very much. It was very, very interesting, you know, that taking us closer to the nature. I think now it is open for question. Francis, as usual, has got some question. Please go ahead, Francis. We have one more speaker. Thank you.
Yeah, Ashley, I really appreciate for, you know, despite having pneumonia, double pneumonia, and we could see through that, you know, you are very tired and you made a very exhaustive presentation. In our Indian culture, you know, I am actually based in Kuwait. I am for the past 20 years, and it's a kind of desert, but then we have parks. I make sure every day I visit the park and I make sure I do barefoot walking. It helps me a lot, you know, rejuvenate the whole body, barefoot walking in the sand. So, and we have mythology and stories, you know, in Indian philosophy, and we always talk about the stories, and everyone got a secret, you know. So in order to defeat someone, we need to find out what is a secret. So I understand from your presentation, you know, the nature is, giving a source of energy. And having coming from Georgia, and I've been there, you know, it's a kind of well blended, you know, with the forest. And I saw snakes in the road actually, you know, while going through the taxi. So, you know, that connects as actually that we draw energy, and you know, from that where we are connected. For example, you rightly mentioned you cannot relate yourself with the ocean or beach side, but then in the forest side, you know, likewise we need to figure out our own area of where we are coming from, where we get the energy, source of energy. That is our secret. So if you are able to figure out, then we can succeed in our life. And also you talked about at least 2 to 5 hours per week, you know, to spend in the nature. That really a learning point. And also I have one sub family I support, where I have epileptic child, you know. He is bedridden, but then we put him in the wheelchair. Every day morning, 4:30 a.m. he wakes up. You know, his name is Chico. We call him Chico. He's Pinto. But then his mother and I help him, to walk through the garden. He really enjoys. He loves. You know, for the people with disability also, you know, special needs, they also enjoy the nature. That is for sure. And your one presentation all, you know, is touched, you know, very important point. The another point is, I know India, what is happening in India is we are becoming a nuclear family. The family is getting, you know, smaller and smaller, and we are living in an apartment, compartmentalized. So I think you are coming from the psychologist as well as dealing with the child. You know, we have a limited space for the, you know, child to move around. And I feel this is a very big limitation. I would like you to know, give a enlighten on this, you know, for mothers, you know, providing the required area for the child, because I see the child now moves around. But then we have apartments, living in studio apartments, you know. Please enlighten us. Thank you.
Yeah. So did you have a question there at the end about the
Yeah,
children?
my question is actually, what's the importance of the child, providing the space for a child, you
Right.
mentioned about your daughter, but during these modern times, we have very limited space.
Right. Yes, I know. And that's very hard. And so whenever I have families who do have very limited space, what I encourage is if they do have a balcony or even just I know most apartment complexes do have at least usually a small common area. I just encourage the families to at least sit outside or have the window open, because even then we're at least allowing some nature inside, right? And we can pair that with then a man-made sensory experience. Like we can have a bowl of water with little floating toys, or have the window open while the child is taking a bath, things like that. So we can still blend some type of natural exposure with a sensory experience, because in my opinion, it's the sensory integration that is also that's the key component, right? So does that answer your question?
Definitely, ma'am. Definitely.
Okay.
We can bring that nature to our home. Yeah, thank you.
Yes, yeah, absolutely. And I am sorry, I did not see everyone's messages about making the screen larger, or I would have. I apologize.
Okay.
If needed, I can share if I need to email the presentation, I'm happy to do that or whatnot, and then you all can have it. So I apologize.
Okay. Thank you, Ashley. Thank you so much.
No, thank you.
Please take care of yourself. Okay. You have been straining so much. Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you. Let's see, let me stop. How do I make myself not the host?
Thank you so much, ma'am, for stressing the importance of nature in our mental well-being. You gave a different perception on how to view nature as a source of healing. Thank you for your words and time, ma'am.
Thank you. I'm trying to think. Okay, there we go. I made you the host now.
Now, it's a pleasure inviting Dr. Olesia Volkova, the Doctor of Psychology, the Professor of Clinical Psychology and Psychotherapy Department at the Krasnoyarsk State Medical University, Russia. She obtained her degree as candidate of psychology, PhD, in the Doctor of Psychology degree in 2019. Now, she has more than 100 papers published in reputed Russian graphs. Now we invite you, ma'am.
Hello, dear colleagues. Can you hear me?
Yeah, ma'am, we can hear you.
Okay. Thank you very much for inviting me to participate in such interesting event. And I think that it is very important that you colleagues from India try to use this pandemic situation, and you do not stop to connect our international collaboration and communication. And as Andres said, we can find a lot of benefits from this COVID pandemic, and this is the evidence of these benefits. So I prepared a very short presentation. I know that we're out of time, and I will try to be not very not very long with my speech. So, and somehow the video has stopped. Okay. So I will be quite short. And first of all, I'd like to tell that the main field of my scientific interest is the phenomena of learned helplessness. And while preparing my doctoral dissertation, I have learned a lot about learned helplessness genesis. And I think that this state should be taken into the account during this pandemic situation which we have now. And I'm sure that now, concerning this issue, we have new challenges. We psychologists will have a lot of work to do, frankly speaking. And let me point some ideas which I think you know, but to generalize them. So I think that it is very important to join our activities and our efforts in studying the consequences of the COVID-19 effects, because nobody in the world was ready for such long pandemic, for such negative effects of this disease, which are connected not only with our body, not only with our somatic health, but now we have many negative results concerning our mental health, what we are talking about today in the day of mental health. And if you could only remember our life 2 years ago, the masks, the isolation periods, the quarantines, and so on. We couldn't even imagine the level of stress which we will have during this period. And now our psyche get used to it. And now we so adapted to this stressful situation, but we should integrate our efforts, and I think that it's a case of the global level to join our activities and to share the information about how can we help our clients, our patients, and each other, and to our doctors, because all levels, all social levels suffered from these situations. And I think that international collaboration here can have long and prospective benefits. So, and what I see now as a psychologist, that the role of psychological assistance is increasing now. And if before we had so a small separation between doctors and psychologists, and we sometimes couldn't find common issues in helping people. Now everything has changed, and we work in a tight collaboration with our doctors here in Russia, in Siberia, in Krasnoyarsk. And so we find more and more information which is very important to share. And I think that we need to organize different types of studies concerning mental health, and which can be organized in different groups of people of different age and different social layers. And I think that we should take into account the psychological, social, and neuroscientific aspects of the pandemic, which are very required now. So you know that now it's gonna be the fourth wave of COVID pandemic, and each stage of COVID pandemic brings us new negative effects. So the first was pneumonia, the second was heart and cardiovascular diseases. The next was problems with in neurotic sphere, and people felt very exhausted. And now all people who suffered from COVID-19 suffer from fatigue. So, and they mentioned that they have difficulties in their cognitive sphere, and so on. So every step, every wave of COVID brings us new fight and new information which we should cope to. We should be very fast in collaboration in this so in this way. So, and that is why I think that it is very important to integrate different disciplines, for example, social psychology, clinical psychology, personal psychology. And what I hear today is the psychology which concerns the early stages of ontogenesis. So, and even So the earliest days of their childhood, I think it is all very important to cope with more deep and more negative consequences of this pandemic. So what I can say, I can share our experience. It is just a kind of report of what we are doing here at our university. So we have some experimental empirical basis in our city and in our region, and we try to conduct them studies concerning the emotional violations among people who suffered from COVID-19. For example, for those who were under intensive therapy and they met different types of fears, for example, vital fears to die, and their character and the psychological traits, so personal traits has changed. So after people suffered COVID-19. And it is also influences the internal picture of illness of patients who has or had COVID-19. So they became more anxious, more frightened, more depressive. And so it is very important because we know that internal picture of illness has four different four compound structure. So the sensation, the emotion, so the intellectual part information we have about the disease we have, and the motivational level. So the third wave of COVID showed that many patients didn't have even motivation to cope with this disease. So, and that is why we see that it touched the mental side of the disease. And so we have a very big research, which is quite prolonged, and we study consequences of COVID-19 pandemic among students. And we made a questionnaire of 14 questions, which was connected with the emotional experience of students, so how they subjectively measured their cognitive abilities during pandemic and self-isolation, distant learning, and so on. So their risk to become addictive, for example, did they started playing computer games or drinking alcohol or different other types of abuse. So we had many interesting information about it. And the last part of this questionnaire was devoted to their opportunity to self-realize. So did the COVID pandemic situation frustrated their opportunity to develop themselves personally? And the investigation showed that there are two opposite points of view among students. Some of them so feel that self-isolation at COVID-19 restricted them and their lives, but some of them found the situation quite beneficial because they shouldn't do extra work, they had enough time for their hobbies and so on. So as in previous presentation of Andreas, I can sign my signature here that the data is very close. So two types of attitude to this situation.
Alicia, can you just mute that person which you can see on the screen?
So I didn't quite hear you. I see the sounds of
yeah. So you can mute that person.
That is okay. I hope, yeah. Okay. Now I see what Hannah called a magic ability. So well, and the very long investigation which were undertaken. So we try to find the signs of learned helplessness state in different age and social layers of people during COVID pandemic. So, and I will explain what we mean. So speaking about learned helplessness, so I think that you know that it's a subjective attitude, self-attitude of a person, and accepting him or herself as helpless. And sometimes people are taught to be helpless because of specific parental children relations, sometimes toxic relations. And also in the situation when people should fight with difficulties and they cannot cope with them. For example, COVID-19 pandemic is a kind of difficulty which we cannot overcome. So that is why we can find some signs of learned helplessness among people nowadays. This state has also 4-compound structure, and it we can define that anyone has learned helplessness when a person has violation in 4 spheres: emotional, motivational, willpower, and cognitive sphere. And during my study, my doctoral study, I found that since the early preschool childhood, people can have signs and risks to obtain learned helplessness state. For example, when they suffer from emotional deprivation during preschool age at about 4, 5, 6 years old. So, and now we can find emotion violation among population of different ages. For example, dysphoric emotional states, the red line of which combines anxiety, aggression, despair, frustration, and uncertainty. So, motivational sphere. So, it is in the risk usually during the first years of school, when motivation should be changed from the motivation to play games into study motivation. So, and if a person has a traumatic experience during this age, so we can find the second layer of the learned helplessness state. And now what we see, so in current conditions, the motivational sphere has changed. And if before people tried to develop themselves, so they tried to build business, families, and they structuralize their lives, now the motivation is to survive. So the motivation is vividly so not so healthy, I think. So the willpower, many people met the violations of willpower sphere during the period of quarantines and self-isolation. So time management, so the overlap of working conditions and home conditions. So everything has broken the willpower of many people around the world. And if concerning learned helplessness, so this personality sphere can be destroyed during the teenage period, so the next layer of learned helplessness. And at last, when people suffer from emotional deprivation, motivational frustration, willpower is also not also works quite effectively, people can meet cognitive violations. So, and what we saw in our investigation of students, most of them mentioned that they felt themselves as more stupid than before. So it was difficult to think, to analyze, to work with a huge amount of information. So, and now what we see, one of the waves of COVID-19 showed that people suffer from cognitive violations. So I was ill with COVID in November of previous year, and I felt it myself that it is quite difficult to think, it is quite difficult to concentrate, to control myself. So everything is vividly evidences that many people can suffer from the learned helplessness state, and which is not very optimistic. So it is not connected with optimism, but otherwise we should find the signs of the learned helplessness. By this structure, I suppose maybe it will help you. So to find the specific ways and to make specific tasks for our psychological assistance. And I think that it is very, very important. So we have a plan which we try to implement in our city, and with help of our university, with leaders of our university, we try to build a kind of a scheme of general psychological support, which can be oriented not only on patients or people generally, but we see that many people, doctors, so they are working in so-called red zones, and they suffered from burnout, and they have all the signs of helplessness, but they are very so specific type of personality, so they try to cope, but they burn out, so we can see it. So workers of healthcare, so, and we plan, and there is a special suggestion from the healthcare ministry of our Krasnoyarsk region to build such type of system of support, of psychological support for those doctors who were involved in help during COVID pandemic. So surely psychologists and psychotherapists we are, because we do not know the specific unique tools for coping with such states, and for helping our patients and our clients with signs of different violations, maybe connected with learned helplessness, burnout, or other states. And so we think that we should build special programs, training programs, to prepare our colleagues to cope with such new issues and new problems. And population of different age and social groups. Now I started with the reminding how our life was structured 2 years ago, and not all people get used to the new situation. Most, yes, but not all. So I think that educational system should be changed, and our children should receive some information about the new structure of world, the new ways of support, for example, like Hannah said, so use nature, and like so my colleagues mentioned that we should use the social support, so we should be socially oriented, meet each other and support each other. And I think that the specific informational system should be widely spread among population, so the ways of self-support and so on. And now there are many popular psychological marathons in the internet and social nets, and I see that they are quite popular among people because people need such psychological assistance. So this was my short presentation. I know that so we should be very careful and caring with our mental health. That is why I'm not going to make you tired in the end of this Sunday. So if you have any ideas and many questions, you can contact me by email or find me maybe in Instagram and ask any questions. So, and I think that it would be very interesting that the investigations which now are being developed in India, in Switzerland and other countries, so we can organize the same. So to obtain some data in Russia, I can be helpful, I think. So, and the weather is quite, looks like fall in our city, but I am going to show you some of our winter days. Thank you for your attention, and I will be happy to answer your questions and to collaborate as well. Thank you.
Mr. Krishnan, we cannot hear you.
Do anyone have questions?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah. We thank you so much, ma'am, for sharing your expertise and insight with us. Your presentation has given a clear view on learned helplessness and its effect during COVID-19 pandemic. Thank you so much, ma'am, for your valuable time.
Thank you. Thank you. It was just a general information, and if you have any interest to this topic, so you can freely connect with me, and so I will tell my opinion, and maybe you have your own point of view. So I think it will be very important for our collaboration. Thank you.
Thank you so much, ma'am. Thank you so much. Can anyone give us the feedback?
On this World International Mental Health Day, this program is really enlightening. I really thank Mr. Krishnan for having organized this program, such an enlightening program. He not only brought us speakers from India, but then around the world. Is connecting the experts, cream of the cream he selected. And we could listen to different perspectives in a global what's happening not only India but then around the world, so that we can easily there's this sessions, all the sessions broaden our mind. We get this global perspective of what's happening around the world, and it is very enlightening, and I'm really thankful for the organizers having organized, and all the speakers. They put their heart and soul and prepared, and they gave essence, and we just have to swallow it. Thank you so much. Good day.
Thank you so much, sir, for your valuable feedback. Anyone else? Now, I thank you all, the resource person, for taking their time. It was a wonderful 2 hours of learning, and we have gained a lot of information and insight. On behalf of Wellbeing Centre, I thank all the participants and their patient listening. We are looking forward to collaborate with you more, and thank you, and have a good evening to America, and have a good day. Thank you all.